Let's bring our guests out. Let's bring Jeff Baena back up, the writer-director. We have, and the two of the stars, Aubrey Plaza and Kate Micucci here. Jeff, just explain what your minor was at NYU and how it relates to this film exactly.
Yeah, so I got a major in film studies, so at Tisch School of the Arts at NYU, and then I got a minor in medieval and Renaissance studies. But it was like completely accidental because I took a bunch of weird classes that I got enough credits that I didn't know until they told me when I graduated. Like I didn't even know it wasn't on purpose.
And yet, it's somehow you were inspired by it. Talk about, for those who don't know, explain what the Decameron is, what sort of stories are in it, and how you sort of use that as your jumping off point.
Yeah, so I wasn't familiar with the Decameron until this one class I took called Sexual Transgression in the Middle Ages and Renaissance. And we studied some other, we studied the Heptameron, the Decameron, Canterbury Tales, and the penitentials, which are the punishments the church levies against people for different crimes, generally like sexual. And so the Decameron's amazing. So it was written in around 1350, which is like 667 years ago, and it's just as funny today as it was back then. So Giovanni Micucci, who wrote it, he, instead of writing it in Latin, which is sort of like the typical way of, I guess, writing back then, he wrote it in the local Florentine dialect. And it's 10 people, it's 7 women, 3 guys, that are hiding out like in a villa from the Black Plague, and for every night they're there, which is 10 nights, each one of them tells a story, so it's 100 individual anthologically sort of combined stories. So they're all just random. And so I took one of the stories with the third day, first story, to sort of use as the framework of this about a guy who pretends he's deaf and dumb at a convent, and then the nuns slowly just started picking him off, sleeping with him. And then there's a couple little details, but like, so for me, like I had no knowledge of this, and so the general idea was like, when I'd read this, was to try to create something that I guess would make this a little more accessible and human, because it's all right there. Like you guys were laughing at stuff that was like straight from the Decameron, like the cutting of the hair, and then he cuts the other guy's hair, like all that stuff was like lifted straight from like one of the stories. So.
And you did end up shooting in Italy. Was it? Let me ask the actors. Was that kind of just as an acting thing that you're that isolated, that you're kind of away from the usual things that that wherever you live, that you're not around the people that you see all the time, and you don't have the distractions of home life? Was that sort of important to sort of keep this experience pure and that you could sort of lose yourself in the time period a little bit?
I would say yes. I think it was really fun to kind of be out in the middle of the woods, running around, not a lot of screens. Yeah, I would say it was helpful.
I think also the time difference from Los Angeles to where we were was almost a different day, so we didn't really have to worry about communicating, and then also our cell phones really didn't work well to begin with, so it really did help to be in that, yeah.
We were like in rural Tuscany. We were like way off the beaten path.
So I mean, so those castles, those are real castles. Those are like, what is that like to like actually have that as your location? That has to be amazing to be able to shoot in a place like that.
It was absolutely incredible. I mean, they live in a place where there's history all around them. They just take it for granted for the most part. It's just, oh yeah, that's a convent from the 800s. But so what's really funny is the way this all came down is I was having a conversation with my friend about this class I took, and he's like, dude, you gotta make that movie. And then I asked my producer, like, because he basically was like, I'll get you $1 million to make this. And then my producer was like, you don't need it, because one of our investors who invested in my first 2 movies, her name is Micucci. She basically runs Tuscany. Her brother runs the film department, the film commission. He's a senator. Her family's like super loaded, and she's been asking these people, this like group of people that have invested in this like equity fund, for like 4 years to shoot in these medieval locations, and everyone's like, okay, we're gonna do that, because like, why would you do that? And I was like, I have this medieval movie idea, and it just like all kind of came. So we had access to these crazy locations that normally I think, and also because this is like in the middle of nowhere, like some people have never seen this stuff before. Like the castle at the end, which is great, is like, it's a real historical castle that is known for torture, and just, it's just like, yeah, like there's one room.
I was gonna say it was super creepy, to answer your question, which was how is it shooting there? And I would also say that Nick Offerman loved showing up and just being given a castle to himself. I've never seen him happier in my life. And he walked around and acted like he did own it.
If you put me in chainmail and gave me a castle, I would be pretty happy about that too. I'm curious about, because I'm always fascinated when actors they have parts of what they able to use when they act taken away from them, and you've only got like this much face showing, and you're just completely covered from head to toe. Did you have to sort of adjust in a way to your performance to take that into consideration? I'm also assuming that those habits were heavy too, so.
They were, it was actually, I thought, very helpful to kind of get in the mindset of like how just uncomfortable, and it sort of brings you down. I mean, I kind of have terrible posture to begin with, but it really just kind of it weighs on you, and it just made you feel very confined, and you can't be free in those costumes. So it really did help put you in the mindset of a nun. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I agree. The fabric was heavy, and I feel like Allison would get really annoyed too. Like at the end of the day, she'd be like, I just want to take this off. Like after like 2 hours or whatever. And I'd be like, well, even 12 more hours. So.
It did seem a little unfair that Dave Franco gets to wear like puffy white shirts unbuttoned to his navel, and like he looks so comfortable, and then you guys are. But it also works because like that way with those habits on, that like the tiniest bit of skin is like, ooh, shocking. It's like you actually get into that mindset where you're not supposed to see anything.
Yeah, ankles become really exciting.
I think that scene where Allison takes off her habit for the first time and you see her hair, you're like, oh my goodness, like hair, you know? So it really does work.
When you either heard about this or got the screenplay, what was your initial reaction? Did you even think it was, see, if I got this in the mail, I'd go, this isn't real. This is some fantasy film no one's ever gonna make this. But what did you think when you read it? Do you remember? Both of you.
For me, I have always wanted to be a nun, and I'm not kidding. This is for real. I have a nun collection in my house. I have a song called "I Want to Be a Nun," and so when my manager called and they said, "Hey, they want you to meet on this nun movie," and I was like, "Nun, as in N-U-N?" That's exactly what I said. And then I met Jeff, and it was like the whole time we were shooting it, I was like, "This is my dream." So for me, it was just, it really was a dream come true.
My first job ever was in a convent. I was the receptionist at the Ursuline Convent in Wilmington, Delaware, and I was surrounded by nuns also growing up, but I didn't want to be one. Maybe there was like a moment, but I don't know. I forget the question.
Just about getting the script, like reading that script for the first time.
Yeah, so I just blindly just said yes.
The film does deal, I think, fairly realistically with this idea of both sexual repression and then how people found ways to fight against it, even sometimes just in small ways. That's a real message, I think. Is that a real theme of the film? Was that important to sort of weave in the reality of the time? And I mean, I realize the language is not of the time, but everything else seems fairly historically accurate.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was a priority. I researched a lot of it. I mean, even the language part of it was a decision to actually make it a little bit more relatable and accurate because, well, first of all, the area in Tuscany that we're in is notorious for cursing. Like, that's like what they're famous for. And then, if you're doing a movie that takes place in medieval Italy and you're not speaking medieval Italian, what are you gonna speak like British, like you're in Game of Thrones? Like it doesn't make sense, like to me. So like it should just be, like something. And also he wrote it in the Florentine dialect, so it was really kind of colloquial as opposed to formal. And I forgot the question too. That was... the historical accuracy. Yeah.
Historical accuracy. Yeah.
So it was really like everything was for me. One of the things that I learned in that class, I keep going back to this class, but was that people back then didn't want. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so religious, I'm gonna become a nun. What ended up happening was you were generally, if you were noble, you were stuck in a convent when you were a little girl, and you learned. It was basically school, and then when you're like 14 to 17, you get married off. But tons of people didn't, and they got stuck there. So there would be. If you never got married, if your husband died, if you were the youngest daughter of the family, if your father just wanted to curry more favor with the church, and this also went along with men, you got stuck in the clergy even if you didn't want to be there, and the majority of people didn't want to be there. It wasn't until like the 1400s when women started choosing to be in in comments almost like as an act of feminism. But before that, you were just forced, and everyone wanted to get married out, and so pretty much they were just getting messed up and having wild sex, like for real, like back then. And I read about all the crazy stuff, like Boccaccio's stories. Like there's a reason why all of them are just like so bawdy, is because they were so repressed and they didn't want to be there, and they just wanted to have a good time, and they're just, you know, women in a place that, you know, ironically is supposed to be chaste.
We're gonna take some questions. We're gonna have a mic right here in aisle 3, right here. So anyone has a question?
So we're only taking questions in aisle 3.
Yeah, so, and we can only see like 2 rows back, so line up over here. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then, and I should mention, this film is actually opening here at the Music Box on July 14th. And if the rumor I'm hearing is true, that at least Jeff is coming back for that, so you can tell you have all that time, like
questions.
2 months, to tell people that you love this movie and to come and see Jeff again when he comes back. Okay, yes, first question.
First, I really enjoyed the movie. Kudos to all you guys. So you kind of said that, you know, some of those scenes were pulled directly from the story. I was wondering how much of the film was, you know, just scripted, or was there a lot of improv? How'd that go?
Okay, so so the general framework of the story was based on one story as the sort of master chassis of the whole thing, and then there was 2 details. Like for instance, when Molly's wearing the pants on her head is a detail from one story, and the hair cutting is a detail. You know, the guy who sleeps with the master's wife and cuts the hair thing, that's another story. But everything for the most part was just a guy. It's like a 2-page story. So I kind of fleshed it out to create more of a movie that was trying to maintain, I guess, the tone of those stories. And I wanted it to have like a real alive feel to it. And my first movie was scripted. My second movie was more improvised. It was like an 18-page outline that we kind of, I would say what we're going to say in each scene. And I really like working that way, so I tried it again for this one, and I think we ended up with like a 20-something page outline. And then, so all the dialogue was improvised. You know, we kind of had a general idea of where we were going, but we were open to sort of what would come up in each scene. So I would say like 98% of the movie is improvised.
Thank you all for coming. I was just wondering, how was it working with the donkey? Was he/she easy to work with? Any funny stories or?
No, I would say not easy to work with. The donkey was pregnant, first of all.
11 months pregnant.
Yeah, and that donkey was named Victoria, and Victoria didn't really feel like doing anything most days.
was like a
Especially
stubborn
not
donkey.
walking behind me when I was dragging her. So, but yeah, she was really cute.
And then they said they were gonna name.
Oh yeah, they said they were gonna name the donkey's baby after me, but I don't believe it.
So there might be a donkey named Aubrey hanging out in Italy somewhere.
Yeah.
It looked like you guys had to eat some kind of gross food during the production, but my question is, what is the best thing that you ate when you were shooting in Italy?
Oh.
Peachy.
No, we know Kate's answer. Yeah.
Peachy.
Peachy the first day I got there,
This is only Kate's answer. This isn't a plan.
Okay, yes.
That's my answer too.
We're obsessed with this pasta called peachy, and I had never, and I'm Italian and I grew up eating pasta every Sunday, but I had never heard of peachy. And when I got there, Jeff and Aubrey were like, we found this pasta called peachy, and then I ate it as much as I could.
It's like fat spaghetti. It's like really fat spaghetti. It's from Siena, like Siena and Montepulciano.
Oh.
Yeah, FYI.
Do you have a different food you like, Jeff?
I mean, honestly, there's this place called Vecchio Mulino in the really small area that we were in, and it's a solemn area, so it's all just meats and cheeses. And the guy invented a sandwich for me that was like a peasant bread panini with sausage and pecorino, but it was like fresh sausage. So that was the best thing probably I ever ate. It was like amazing.
What was the name? He named it, right?
He called it the Hollywood sandwich. The H is silent, so.
This was a really great film. In the genre of fornicating nuns in 13th century Italy, it's probably my favorite film that I've seen. But the trailer did a fantastic job of letting us know kind of what we're getting into before we came into it. I perceive that maybe some people might be surprised by some of the language or the plot or the sex or the violence or a lot of it. And I'm wondering what reactions you guys have seen. Have you had people knowing what they're getting into when they come in, or have there been people surprised, or have there been people that were upset by what they saw in the film?
The Catholic reader hates it.
The Catholic League.
The Catholic League.
Yeah, they said it's trash for
They
trash.
don't
It says
like
that in
it.
the show, yeah.
They think it's bad. They think it's a bad movie.
The Catholic, that quote's on the poster though, that is trash. Like the poster we have in the lobby, check it out, because it's one of the 3 quotes. And it's like, just as trash, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, up until, I guess, this festival and the Maryland Festival, no one had seen the trailer, so every festival you played at before that, no one knew what they were getting into. They just saw the cast and assumed it was a straight comedy. So, yeah, I think the people first learn that it's kind of supposed to be funny when Aubrey and Kate both start cursing at the servant guy. And then, then obviously, like, you're like, okay, here we go. But yeah, and then like I think there's 2 like always like groan moments when the first one is when Kate knocks Jemima out. Everyone's like, oh god. And then when Nick says that he's basically getting married to a prepubescent girl, always kind of gets a groan. And those are the 2. Other than that, it's generally just like laughing.
That's great, thank you.
Hi. So I noticed in the opening credits that Aubrey, you're credited as a producer on this movie, and I'm just curious what might have inspired you to take on that role and what you might have taken away from that.
Well, it's my 3rd movie that I've made with Jeff, and the producers of all of those movies are the same, so it's kind of a crew that I've been with now for some time. And I would say that I would say this movie was a little different from the other ones just because my involvement was kind of from the very beginning of it, from the first idea of it, and I wasn't so much a physical producer, but I kind of helped gather the cast and stuff like that, so it just kind of seemed like an organic next step considering the last films that we did together.
Kate, this question is directly to you. You saying you wanted to be a nun and your life is filled with nunnery and everything. Was there anything in the movie that was taboo that you didn't want to be a part of, or things that you didn't want to say?
No, I mean, I think that ship kind of sailed for me a while ago. I sing a song, then the chorus goes, fuck me in the ass because I love Jesus. So I feel like after that, this was like, I feel like that was the crossing the line a little, and then so after that, I'm okay with all the Jesus stuff, yeah.
Saw a poem. So 2 quick questions for you. First one, hopefully a yes question. You guys want to hang out after this? Hey.
Yeah.
Perfect. Next question. So you have movies like Airplane, for example, which are pretty irreverent, a little bit raunchy, and then you have movies like sort of Scary Movie, which also irreverent and raunchy, and then you have like this, which I'd say more towards the quality level of like Airplane, for example, where it's not just sort of like this gross, freak out humor. When you're coming at this, and I mean, you said that sort of 90% was improvised. I guess you're sort of coming at this idea or this sort of script, and you do want to have sort of this raunchy, sex-based humor, or this sort of like, fuck you sort of humor. How do you identify like what works with the script or what works with ideas without venturing into like Scary Movie 7?
So like, how do you maintain a tone?
Yeah, how do you sort of maintain a tone? How do you do raunchy humor right, I guess?
Well, first off, like I didn't set out to do anything like logical like that. So it wasn't like I'm gonna do raunchy humor right, or I'm gonna try to do Airplane or any of that stuff. You just sort of, I read the stories, and there's a tone to the stories, which is silly and bawdy, but also clever and fun, and there's like a wittiness to them and a humanity, because ultimately Micucci was trying to get people to relate to people. And my ultimate goal was just to make these people relatable, so that even though this is almost 700 years old, we connect with them, and we do have, even though it's like we're laughing with them or laughing at them, that we have some kind of connection to them as human beings. And then tonally, I just sort of knew how to sort of walk that line. And you definitely, it's not like when you're shooting it, you're molding performances and you're kind of discussing sort of the angle you're going for, and if people go a little too far, that's like kind of just as director, that's like mostly what you're doing, is just kind of trying to shape it so that it kind of fits into something that feels right, that it's not like you're doing check marks or anything, you're just like, okay, that's it, that's not it, kind of thing. I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like when you like say a word over and over again, like it doesn't make sense anymore, but like that's kind of what you're doing.
Cool. Awesome. Makes sense. See you later.
Yeah. Thanks, man. We're at 1460 Clark.
Hi. So I was just breaking this up because there was a lot of middle-aged dudes asking questions. I also really love talking on a microphone. I just wanted to say I really appreciate funny women, and I went to Catholic school my entire life, and this was great. So, thanks. Alright, thanks.
And back to your normally scheduled white guys with glasses. So my question is for you, Jeff, about the historic. I was really interested in the historic context. I had no idea about that, and that was really interesting. I was wondering the stuff that they put in their eye and then Kate eats. Like, is that from that story, or did you just make that up, or what's that?
So the belladonna, yeah, no, I made that up. So that's just what was going on historically. Like that wasn't really in the story itself, the actual source story. It's 3 or 4, possibly 4 different nuns were like, he's sleeping. She looks and sees his like through his pants that he has a boner, and she has sex with him. Like that's kind of how it goes down. There's no characters to the girls, but I also knew a lot about the historicity of that, like specifically that period, that and the Renaissance. Like I'm pretty good on, and I just knew about that where women would use drops as like Stevie Nicks even did that. Like she would go around doing that in like the 70s, just because it's like a witchy thing when your pupils are dilated. It just looks sexier to men. But then also I'm very familiar, not very like personally familiar, but I'm familiar with the hallucinogenic properties of belladonna. So like I thought that was kind of like a funny thing to play off of. Just like the cutting her finger and using the blood as like makeup, that's what women would do, like middle class women, if there was such a thing, and at that time period would do that. That's that kind of stuff I think is historical, like all the personal details that people were pulling off back then. But yeah, those were like, that was real. But it wasn't in the story, yeah.
Hey guys.
I think we got time. This is gonna be our last question. Sorry guys, we gotta get another film in here. You get in line behind this guy.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just wanted to know where the title came from.
So when we were doing the sort of, I guess the prayers, like the John C. Reilly saying, Aubrey, because she was a producer, offered to research it and give me sort of the breakdown of what John would be saying in those prayers. And then after she had done her research, she's like, by the way, like when I was researching this.
Which was reading the Bible.
Yeah. She wrote this book that she's talking about. That she goes, oh, by the way, I researched it, and it's called The Little Hours, all these like prayers, like the 6 sort of services throughout the day. And I was like, oh my God, because I'm really bad with titles. I was like, that could be a really good title. And she's like, I know, that's why I told you. So that's where the title came from Aubrey.
Oh, there's no one there.
I was gonna let that another guy go because he started to talk. Okay, I feel bad. All right, well anyway, thank you guys so much for coming out to our festival, sticking around.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for coming and sticking around.